All right, here we are. This is a new section, new series, narrating Nick Fuentes, part one. I'm Abe Zuka. We'll begin with the cathedral and the exhausted people, a political anthropology of elite unity, democratic impotence, and learned helplessness. Narrating Nick Fuentes, part one. Where there is no friendship, there is no city. The beginning is the most important part of the work. Power resides where men believe it resides. Synoptic power. Power in advanced democracies no longer appears as command but as coordination. It operates through a dispersed unity of institutions, political offices, universities, media systems, cultural production, philanthropy, that together from a seamless cognitive and moral environment, because no single node can be isolated as a sovereign source, resistance misfires, striking fragments while leaving the whole intact. The cathedral. An oligarchic order persists most effectively when it presents itself not as rule but as inevitability. When governance is reframed as expertise, norms as ethics, and coercion as care, opposition appears not merely wrong but unintelligible. The cathedral does not govern by decree, it governs by shaping the range of what can be thought, said, and morally imagined. Of elite disaffiliation. An elite does not share the values, loyalties, or fate of population it governs, cannot generate durable legitimacy. Such an elite substitutes procedural, ritual, and symbolic representation for genuine alignment of interests. In the absence of philia between rulers and ruled, social cohesion decays into administrative management and moral pedagogy. A population deprived of credible leadership is not liberated but exposed. History demonstrates that groups without recognized leaders, traditions of discipline, and habit of fellowship are easily dominated even without overt violence. Subjugation follows not from weakness alone, but from the loss of cultural skill of coordinated obedience toward a shared end. Elites that fear popular solidarity will consistently fracture it. By moral stigmatization, by substituting proxy client groups or redefining collective interests as pathological, this hostility is not accidental, it is structural. Tyrannical systems prefer populations that are isolated, individualized, and ashamed of shared identity. Political movements that claim to speak for the people while cycling through interchangeable beneficiary groups reveal the instrumental logic. Allegiance is not grounded in loyalty or common good, but in utility. Once a group ceases to serve symbolic or administrative functions, it is discarded and replaced, leaving behind resentment and social debris. Repeated mobilizations that produce no tangible change train populations into passivity. When protest becomes ritual without consequence, it ceases to be resistance and becomes therapy. The crowd learns not hope but futility, internalizing the lesson that action is permitted precisely because it is ineffectual. Democracy, understood as the power of the many to impose consequences, has been declining for centuries as standing armies, bureaucratic states, and professionalized security replaces the need for popular force. Mass participation loses leverage. Representation persists as symbol long after power has migrated elsewhere. Modern populations are governed less by fear than by comfort, habit, and dependency. A society optimized for safety, consumption, and procedural order produces citizens who are increasingly incapable of risk, violence, or sustained confrontation. Such populations may gather, chant, and costume themselves, but they cannot compel. When neither mobs nor representatives can threaten real disruption, politics becomes theater, leaders become icons, elections become spectacles, and dissent becomes content. The system tolerates endless expression because expression no longer alters outcomes. Effective governance requires unity of purpose at the apex. When power is fragmented among compelling and competing institutions with misaligned incentives, the result is paralysis masked as pluralism. The parts pursue their own survival while the whole loses coherence and direction. The ultimate condition of a pacified democracy is not oppression but neglect. The people are not silenced, they are bypassed. Decisions proceed without reference to popular will because popular will no longer possesses causal and causal force. Learned helplessness in the therapeutic state, a parallel cycle of pacification, care, and in the managed subject. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it is the act with yesterday's logic. The soul becomes dyed with color of its own thoughts. Power is exercised rather than possessed. Conditioned futility. Learned helplessness emerges not from a single defeat, but from a sequence of permitted failures. When action is repeatedly encouraged, ritualized, and rendered inconsequential, subjects internalize the conviction of that effort is meaningless. That effort is meaningless. The lesson taught is not submission, but force. The resignation by experience. The modern state increasingly governs by care rather than command. Political conflict is reframed as trauma, dissent as distress, and opposition as pathology. In this mode, power does not argue with its subjects, it diagnoses them. White people too rich. I like that. And I mean rich intellectually. Rich as inventive and imaginatively. White people are too rich and imaginative. They need to dumb themselves down. Suffering is no longer something to be abolished, only managed. The therapeutic state offers mitigation, counseling, and symbolic recognition in place of structural change. Pain becomes a credential, and endurance replaces transformation as the highest civic virtue. When institutions assume responsibility for emotional regulation, citizens are relieved of the burden of agency. The population is trained to seek reassurance rather than resolution, protection rather than power. Maturity is quietly deprecated as instability. Permitted protests function as emotional release rather than political leverage. Demonstration becomes a sanctioned outlet of frustration, calibrated to relieve pressure without altering direction. The crowd is allowed to speak so that it need not be obeyed. The crowd is allowed to speak so that it need not be obeyed. The crowd is allowed to speak so that it need not be obeyed. Safety supremacy. The elevation of safety above all other values reorders political life around risk avoidance. Any action capable of producing change is recoded as dangerous, irresponsible, or extremist. Stability becomes the ultimate moral good even when it preserves injustice. Stability becomes the ultimate moral good even when it preserves injustice. Stability becomes the ultimate moral good even when it preserves injustice. In the therapeutic state, legitimacy flows from credentialed expertise rather than shared consent. Decisions are justified as technical necessities rather than political choices. Disagreement is dismissed not as wrong, but as uninformed. The state increasingly intervenes not to redistribute wealth or power, but to redistribute feeling. Policies aims to equalize anxiety, shame, and reassurance across populations, creating an emotional equilibrium that substitutes for material justice. Coercion persists, but in diffuse form. Instead of prohibition, there are nudges. Instead of punishments, exclusions. Instead of prisons, protocols. Compliance is secured not through fear of force, but a fear of abandonment and stigma. The therapeutic state thrives on continuous low-grade emergency, crisis-legitimized intervention, suspension of accountability, and expansion of managerial authority. Resolution would threaten the apparatus built to respond and is therefore indefinitely deferred. As citizens are asked to feel constantly empathy, outrage, vigilance, they lose the capacity to will. Emotional saturation replaces deliberation. The subject becomes morally busy and politically inert. Diversity of expression is encouraged so long as it remains symbolic. The system tolerates infinite identities, narratives, and voices, provided none of them crystallize into disciplined collective action. Difference multiplies while power remains singular. Time is the therapeutic state. Time in the therapeutic state is non-teleological. There is no promised future of resolution, only ongoing process, review, and adjustment. Politics becomes a permanent present, administered rather than decided. The ideal citizen of the therapeutic state is grateful, not sovereign. Gratitude replaces entitlement. Assistance replaces rights. To demand more is to framed as ingratitude, to resist as ingratitude weaponized. While formal freedom remains speech, movement, lifestyle, the avenue for meaningful exit from the system's narrow. From the system's one way to opt out of narratives, not of administrations. Freedom survives as customization, not as autonomy. Professionalism, progressive, and the Rubicon trap on ideological employment, symbolic opposition, executive power, and the scaling logic of regime conflict. Politics is about power. If you are not willing to act, you will be acted upon. Where there is no decision, there is only procedure. Ideology as employment, the professional progressive class. The paid creed. When an ideology becomes a job requirement, it ceases to function primarily as belief and begins to function as credential. The professional progressive is not merely convinced, he is employed. In such a system, truth is not what persuades, but what secures status, safety, and onward mobility within institutions. 10 to 20 million. A movement with 10 to 20 million participants whose income depends on ideological conformity is not a mere opinion climate, it is an economy. The labor market becomes a doctrinal machine producing graduates, managers, compliance offices, writers, HR systems, and reputational gatekeepers. The ideology produces itself by payroll before it reproduces itself by persuasion. The ideology that is required at work will eventually be rehearsed at home, if only to avoid cognitive dissonance and social risk. Over time, private belief becomes an after-image of professional performance. The person does not so much hold the ideology as live inside its incentives. In an ideological labor system, morality becomes a set of formal competencies. Virtue is measured by fluency, not sacrifice, by correct enunciations, not costly commitments. The ethic is real, but its reality is bureaucratic. It is tracked, displayed, and rewarded. False differentiation, good cop, bad cop distinctions, the cosmetic spectrum. When political factions share the same institutional substrate, their differences become primarily aesthetic. The claim that liberal and communist represent decisive alternative functions as moral device for the opposition, not as an analytical distinction. The regime's operational continuity becomes a hidden constant beneath the rhetorical variation. A regime stabilizes itself by offering controlled internal contrast, allowing citizens to interpret rotation as choice. The good cop promises moderation, the bad cop threatens extremities, and both preserve some enforcement. The subject is trained to prefer relief over victory and concession over replacement. At a certain phase, citizens stop believing in fine-grained ideological labels and start believing only in outcomes. When the threshold is crossed, persuasion campaigns lose traction because the audience has moved from theology to accounting. The regime then compensates by intensifying stigma and narrowing permissible speech rather than widening persuasion. Defense of politics, the leave me alone failure model. Asymmetric ambition. Movements organized around being left alone are structurally disadvantaged against movements organized around taking power. One side's victory condition is cessation, the other side's victory condition is expansion. The expansionist side can treat the defensive side's peace offering as a temporal pause in conquest. A purely negative program can mobilize anger but cannot sustain organization. Stop cannot substitute for build because institutions are built by affirmative design, not by refusal. The defensive movement becomes an intermittent protest without an apparatus and therefore without durable leverage. When conflict is framed as existential, losing is no longer an inconvenience but a reclassification. The defeated are not simply outvoted, they are made administratively legible as deviants, risks, or enemies of order. The fate of the vanquished is not silence, it is procedural containment. Overexposure and scapegoat manufacture. Media personality warfare. Modern regimes personalize threat to make it narratable. If a diffuse coalition moves, the system searches for an architect to concentrate blame. Scapegoating simplifies conflict into morality play, converting structural struggle into story with villains and plotters. Being accused publicly become a prelude to being processed institutionally. The smear is not merely reputational, it is pre-legal. Public overexposure functions as a soft subpoena. It creates a file, a category, and a justification for surveillance, litigation, and career restriction. The fame penalty. Visibility is treated as evidence. The more a figure appears, the more the system interprets appearance as influence, the more it interprets influence as conspiracy. Overexposure becomes self-fulfilling trap. The subject is punished for being noticed, regardless of what he has actually done.